Get it all to mesh along with the drivers and along with the people who do the work and make the decisions on the spot. That's not always easy.
It doesn't really solve any of the problem in a space where I feel like NASCAR has the perfect opportunity to try something tangible to fix short track racing, because we talked about this 2 weeks ago, because this is just the all-star race. It's not a points race.
I still feel there's guys that are just better than me on super speedways, and I feel like a lot of it comes from experience and being put in different situations and whatnot. And so just I have a lot to learn.
Welcome on to the Backstretch. I'm News 5's Heather Williams, and there is nothing like coming out of the off week to a big bombshell. I don't think anyone saw this move coming. I know that I was certainly shocked when I saw it move on X on Wednesday. Rodney Childers out at Spire Motorsports. The release from the team and from Childers says it is a mutual decision for them to part ways. It is fascinating that the crew chief, maybe the guy, even beyond a driver, that was considered the number one free agent in the offseason, the coup, the guy everybody allegedly wanted to have, lasted 9 weeks. And it's over at Spire Motorsports for Rodney Childers. Talk about this with Chris a little bit later on. It is Wednesday, so we don't know anything like any of the details that might leak out about what happened. We don't know any more information than what was in that statement about the parting of ways. We don't know who Justin Haley's new crew chief is going to be at this point, either on the interim basis or maybe they already have somebody in mind at Spire. It is fascinating the turmoil the 7 team has been through just in 9 weeks. Pit crew swap. The crew that was with Justin is now with the 5 team, and the 7 team now has 5 teams pit crew because Hendrick Motorsports handles the pit crews for Spire. The car chief left, went to Joe Gibbs Racing, and now the crew chief's gone. That's a lot to deal with just 9 weeks into the season. And if this is what silly season's going to look like, I'm definitely going to need a seatbelt and a helmet. It's going to be a wild ride. We are definitely going to talk about that with Chris. We're also going to talk about the All-Star race. They announced a new format for that, including something called a promoter's caution that has to come in, I think, the first 200 laps or before lap 200, or I don't remember what the exact number is, but it's a gimmick to me. And it sparks an interesting conversation now that other sports are having about their all-star race, Pro Bowls, whatever, all-star game, that I never thought that we would have in NASCAR, because a race is a race, right? And these drivers drive the all-star race like they do any other race. They want the trophy and the check. But has the all-star race kind of outlived its productivity? Like, the Pro Bowl is not at all what it used to be. It's just a bunch of games now, skills games in hockey and basketball. And I just feels like that all of these games, races, whatever, all-star events have outrun their usefulness for the sport. And it's, like I said, it's crazy because I never thought I would say that about racing, because I always thought the all-star race was different. It felt different. Because a race is a race, and these guys like to race for trophies and checks. But I mean, if we're having to throw cautions because it's a snoozer, then maybe we've passed the usefulness of the all-star race. Our guest this week is Zane Smith. Love talking to Zane. It's the first time we've had Zane on the Backstretch, I'm pretty sure, at least as a Cup Series driver. And he really had some really interesting things to say about Talladega. I always thought of Zane as a guy who is a really good super speedway racer. He won back-to-back years in the Daytona truck race. He's won the ARCA race at Talladega, where we're going this week. Zane doesn't see it that way, which was fascinating to me. So we will dive into that a little bit with Zane. Also find out, how his off week went, and just see, how excited he is to kind of go to the grind, because we're all out from here till the end of the season. November 3rd is the next off day for NASCAR. So Can't wait to talk to Zane. It's a really fun conversation. Let's get rolling. Joining us now is our crew chief, Chris Carrer, who is also the crew chief for the number 75 Food Country truck in the CrossFit Truck Series. I'll start with a little bit of a disclaimer. We are taping this part of the show on Wednesday, so if there's a lot of news breaking within the last hour or so, we'll start with that, but know that it's fluid and it might change in the next few days. Let's start with the most shocking news of the day from Spire Motorsports. They are parting ways with Rodney Childers. They say it's a mutual parting of the ways. I don't think anyone saw that coming. Chris, I know when I broke the news to you, you were really surprised.
I didn't, and we spend a good amount of our time with our truck team at Spire because we do a lot of business there. We've got a connection. I wouldn't call it a formal connection, but we're there a lot. We pull our trucks down. We get a lot of work done there as far as repair and assembly and so on and so forth. We bought some equipment there, some trucks, and they go back and forth. And I'm real good friends with several of the people there, and good friends with Rodney Childers. And I talked to him a couple of times when I was over there, saw him a couple of times at the racetrack. I have a tremendous amount of respect for him, and it does, man, I'll be honest with you, when you told me they're out there in the lobby, it kind of, I'm like, what? And as we were talking, Heather, before we came on the air here, this is a hard sport. This is difficult. It's difficult. And the relationship between not only crew chief and driver, but crew chief and all the members of his team, the crew chief and the people that are the management of the team overall and that make decisions up here in the upper rooms and so on and so forth. You know, it's tough, and it's a very competitive environment. It doesn't take just a little bit to be off. Just a little bit. And I don't know, we can hypothesize all we want about, okay, what brought this on or whatever. The 17, I think anybody, and I don't think anybody would argue with the fact that the performance this year was a little under expectation with a guy like Rodney Childers and a young, he's not a kid, but a young man like Justin Haley, he's a gas masher in my book. He proved that he can run fast, and I thought Rodney would be the perfect match for him. But you know, maybe it just wasn't, for whatever reason, it wasn't working and wasn't going to work. And I think Rodney's experienced enough and been around this stuff long enough and been in several corners and been in many different corners of it that he probably knows and probably has it kind of in his heart of like what's what and what's not good and is good. And all I can say is I wish him the best. I don't know, you know, maybe I don't know. Maybe he doesn't really want to just like jump into something else. He might want to take some time off and say, may want to see what really unfolds here before, you know, I don't think he's going to be in a big hurry to jump ship and go somewhere else. We'll see. But I think at the end of the day, it'll probably work out in the end. Most of these things do. It works out to be the best for everybody, no matter what the cause or causes were to make this change.
Well, what's interesting to me about the whole thing is this is like the culmination of a lot of upheaval for the 7 team. Mm-hmm. They lost their car chief to Joe Gibbs Racing maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. They lost their pit crew in a swap with the 5 car because Hendrick supplies pit crews for Spire, and they flipped them. So basically the only person that's left on the 7 team that was there when the season started is the driver.
This is true. This is true.
I think that this might actually put a lot of pressure on Justin Haley because they have now changed everything but the driver.
Yeah, that's a great point. You know, I guess when you change everything in the kitchen, to the pots and the pans and the food you're using and the oven and the whatever else, the toaster, then the pressure's on the cook. All of a sudden to say, okay, the meals aren't good. We've changed everything else. It must be you. I don't know that they're, trying to, make that type of decision.
Well, I don't think
right now,
I don't think all those choices were on Spire, because they
no.
definitely didn't want Cheddar to leave, and they definitely didn't want the crew chief swap or the crew pit crew swap.
Pit crew swap.
But
no.
these things have now happened.
Right.
And
right.
and so how do they react?
Well, and it is, as you know, everybody's human. You never stop being human, and in this sport, it's tough, and you got to look in the mirror and know that, like, okay, kind of on me now. I got to have broad shoulders. I got to take this on. I've got to take this team on my shoulders and carry it. And a lot of times that happens with the driver, and he's the one that's there, and whoever comes in to be his crew chief, they replaced the car chief, now they got a different pit crew, whether that will stay the same and whatever. You know, Justin, I have a lot of confidence in Justin. I still say he's a little gas masher. That's what he is, and I think he can get the job done, but it is going to put some pressure on him here. We're, what, fourth of the way through the season or something, and he's got a lot of making up to do and a lot of season, and we'll see. You know, that company as a whole has done a lot.
They spent a lot of money.
And I'm there. I can tell you from being there. There's a lot of people in that building, and they are trying to expand, and they're pushing the walls out, and there's a lot going on in that building. 4 full-time truck teams, 3 full-time cup teams. They do some ARCA races, this, that, and other. They're doing a lot. So,
and they have a lot of engineers and a lot of smart people. There's no
yes, they do.
There's no lack of a depth of a pool of guys to come be the crew chief for that team.
I mean, Matt McCall, for instance, we were talking about him. I have a ton of respect for him. He's got, what is his title? Some big title.
Director of Vehicle Performance, I believe, something along those lines.
That's a top guy. He's a smart guy, and he has a lot of responsibility, and he's got a lot of background to, you know, he's the one who is over making the race cars fast. And they have a lot of smart people, a lot of talent, a lot of experience inside that building, inside that group. But to get it all to mesh, along with the drivers and along with the people who do the work and make the decisions on the spot, that's not always easy. And sometimes when you have a lot of, if you want to say big name, very smart, very experienced, very talented people, it's also intimidating a little bit. You know, it comes for other people get a little bit intimidated. Maybe even the drivers get a little bit intimidated, and like it backs them up for a little bit. Everybody doesn't give their 100%. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out and how this how everybody reacts to this and what moves they make from here forward. I don't think that crowd has any intention of doing anything but going forward and finding the way to. They want to be just an arm of Hendrick Motorsports is what they want to be. They want to be part of and just as good as Hendrick Motorsports in the end. So they're trying. We'll see. And Rodney Childers, I think he'll find a place that he wants to be, and it'll be productive, and he'll do something hopefully for somebody, you know, that'll help somebody else get to winner's circle, and it'll all be fine.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody involved will be just fine. There's a lot of talented people.
Oh, yeah.
All right, the other big news today, NASCAR released the format for the All-Star race and the rules. Let's just say you probably need an advanced degree to get through some of the small print on these rules. The biggest thing that stuck out to me is the promoter's choice caution. This is basically, yeah, I know you're taking it back, right? Because it gets crazy. Up to a certain point in the race, the promoter, which will be Marcus Smith or his designee, can just randomly throw a caution.
Okay.
To me, this just seems like a gimmick that kind of throws up your hands and says, we know this is going to be a terrible short track race. It has been the last 2 times we've been out here. But it doesn't really solve any of the problem in a space where I feel like NASCAR has the perfect opportunity to try something tangible to fix short track racing, because we talked about this 2 weeks ago, because this is just the All-Star race. It's not a points race. So more horsepower or, you know, different tire compound or a different option tire or whatever. Instead, they went with this, and it just really bothers me. So what is your thought on all that?
Well, it sounds to me just like a title for the old debris caution.
Yeah, basically.
When the leader gets out there and he's 6 seconds ahead and just sitting there strolling around waiting for the end of the race, and second and third place are not close to one another, and maybe the only two cars actually racing are maybe 10th and 11th or something, and we've been running laps, and you look around and you know, the fans are going to the concession stand to get popcorn instead of watching a race, or maybe they're gathering up their stuff and heading out. It's, you know, it's time to say, okay, gotta throw it, put it out, caution. You know, what was caution for? I don't know, it's something over in turn 3 blew across the track. Might have been a squirrel, or might have been a drive shaft, or maybe it's a paper cup. But we're gonna make sure it's okay, and you bunch everybody up, you have a restart. And a lot of times there's activity going on, and unfortunately somebody's cars get torn up, and maybe the leader gets knocked out, and now we can report that they had an exciting finish.
Right.
So,
well, and
I'm like you. This is not, to me, I'm sorry, I don't want to be negative, but this is not the fix. This is not the fix that we need, that we're looking for. And it doesn't really surprise me that Marcus Smith and this sounds just like his dad.
Well, this actually came from NASCAR.
Did it really? Wow.
I mean, but I'm sure Marcus was involved. I mean, because
I'm sure.
I'm sure it was a meeting of the minds. The thing that's so fascinating to me about all this mess with the short tracks is that obviously NASCAR sees a problem at North Wilkesboro, right? Mm-hmm. And the last two All-Star races proved that out. I think Kyle Larson led all but about 4 laps. Joey Logano the same last year.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
just drove off.
Everybody in the off week for Bristol was clamoring for Bristol's date to go to North Wilkesboro. Mm-hmm. You know what the difference between the last 2 Bristol races and North Wilkesboro was? Ricky Stenhouse Jr. punched Kyle Busch, so everybody thought it was amazing.
Yeah.
The races themselves were almost the identical races.
Yeah.
And
not even good.
I mean, I love the people at
Boring.
Speedway Motorsports. Bristol, I live here. Mm-hmm. But the problem is we've got to fix short track racing. It is the bread and butter of this sport.
It is.
These tracks, when people are talking about taking races away from Bristol and Martinsville, that should send up all kinds of alarm bells in the sport.
I agree 100%. This is what, this is what this sport, the tracks you're talking about, the Richmonds and the Bristols and the Martinsvilles and the North Wilkesboros and the Nashville Fairgrounds and places like that. I mean, this is what made it live. And even go back, go further to say, okay, the Kingsport Speedways and the Hickories and the South Bostons and Ashbrook Airway and Birmingham, Alabama, and
Bowman Gray.
Bowman Gray, all these short tracks where people could go to every week and watch. You can call it beat and bang, you can call it lean on each other, push and bump, or whatever. This is what kept it going. When back before NASCAR was a big deal, and then when it got to be a big deal, that's what the races at Bristol was was the main thing.
Yeah, no.
I mean, it was what everybody talked about.
People talk about
165,000 people down here at this place.
People talk about, and you still there were still 60,000 at this last race, and there's 100,000 at the night race. Yeah. And people talk about the night race as one of the crown jewels.
Yes,
of the
absolutely.
sport.
Absolutely.
And there's 3 that everybody agree on, and then the 4th, there's about 2 or 3 races, Bristol one of them.
Yep.
So how do we get from there to where we are now, where we're talking about taking a race from this track?
Well,
and I don't think NASCAR is seriously considering that, but this is what the fans are saying.
Yeah, and it bothers me, and all I can say is, our team runs a truck series at part-time, and I think I told somebody after the Bristol race, I said, the only race down there the whole time that the competitors that the cars didn't run in a line the whole night was a truck series.
It's true, but in the Xfinity series, outside of Kyle Larson whooping everyone, it was a pretty good race.
Pretty decent
And the
race.
thing that was great about the Xfinity series race was when Kyle got shuffled back, he did pull the bump and run to get the lead. Mm-hmm. You cannot do that in the Cup car right now.
No. I just think my first opinion is I joined with Denny Hamlin, his voice. I think he's a pretty smart guy. I believe the cars need more horsepower, and I think it's pretty common knowledge and pretty accurate common knowledge that the teams and the engine builders have verified that, you know, they could, if NASCAR said, okay, we want these cars to have, I don't know, 150 more horsepower. That's a good amount. This can be done without a huge cost. It's not going to be, oh my gosh, it's going to put 4 or 5 teams out of business. That's not the case. It can be done, and the teams can adapt to it. And I don't know, I'm disappointed. To me, North Wilkesboro would be the perfect place to try this, because if it doesn't work, it's not a points race.
It hasn't cost anyone anything as far as the championship goes.
And to be honest with you, no matter what it is, the race probably couldn't be much worse than the last 2 races there.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I hate to say that, but come on. Everybody that watched it can agree. I mean, maybe we can just pay somebody to punch somebody else and it'll all be fine. But I feel like that there's things, there's got to be some things too, chassis-wise, maybe tire-wise, I don't know. But the first thing is put some power to these things. Listen to the guys that are talking. Take their ideas and let's run with it and see what happens. We got to fix it. It's not the racetracks. The point I was making about the Truck Series race at Bristol and even Xfinity, it's not the racetrack, because those races were pretty darn good races. Yeah. You know, the Cup Series race was boring.
Well, and the same at Martinsville.
Same at Martinsville. And
I mean,
we got to do something here, and I know they're with a car that they can't just say, okay, we got to junk this car and build something all new. That will put everybody out of business. But
we haven't tried everything. We haven't tried everything.
We haven't tried anything. Maybe you know, sooner or later they need another type car just for the short tracks. Maybe they can learn something off the Truck Series or the Xfinity Series and go from there. I know our driver, Parker Kligerman, he's driven Xfinity cars last 2 years, and he tells me, he said those cars are so cool to drive, and he said I've had conversations with many of his colleagues, other drivers that drive the Xfinity Series, and he said we've talked about a lot that, like, you put a 900 horsepower engine in this thing the way they are. He said you talk about cool. He said it'd be really good, and the racing would be fantastic, because you're going to have a smart foot, and you're going to burn the tires off, which is at the wrong time. You're going to burn the tires off. Some of them are, some of them aren't, and then they're going to be passing each other like crazy.
Kind of like the Bristol race in the spring last year, which is what everybody says they want. But I digress. This week, NASCAR heads to Talladega.
Yeah.
Oh, you like Talladega?
Well, it's.
So what can we expect on the Super Speedway this weekend?
Well, the one thing you can expect is a bunch of people to be there. I'm assuming it's good weather. Okay, I think it is. It probably doesn't matter. The infield will be full. The action will be in the infield before the race starts, but then there'll be both. You know, I was thinking about this today. The one thing about speedway racing, especially in the Cup Series, but it's even trickled down through the Xfinity Series and even into the Truck Series, is the company, teammate, alliance stuff that some stuff is decided way before the race starts about, you know, like usually pit strategy, usually predicting fuel mileage and fuel capacity and fuel range, how many laps can you run. And we're going to say, okay, all of us guys that have bow ties on our hoods are going to pit on, we're going to pit on lap X, and all going to be together, and we're going to take 4 tires or 2 tires, and we're going to fill up. And what everybody's working toward is they want to pit at the right time before the end of the race, and usually before the end of the second stage, so that they pit under green. They all come in a big pack. They have drafting partners. They can go back out. They can stay on the same lap. Then if the caution comes out before everybody else pits, they're going to restart up front. They're going to have all the track position together, and the ones that pit under caution are going to be behind them and going to have to pass them all. I was just thinking about this before coming down here and thinking about, okay, it's going to happen. It happens every race and so on. It's all right, but I don't see Dale Earnhardt sitting in on one of those meetings. And I don't see him saying, yeah, we'll all come at once. I don't I could not see that happening. And now
Well, I think the up to a certain point, everybody in those groups will work together.
They will.
But there are still guys that at the end of the race, if Denny Hamlin's sitting there and he's got his teammate, or he's got, you know, Kyle Larson to draft behind him, and he thinks that Kyle is a stronger car, I believe all bets are off.
I don't disagree with you. I do not disagree with that. They may be some that, like, okay, I'm sitting here in second and I'm boxed in. I mean, there's no way for me to go. I can't go up, I can't go down because I'm boxed in. So I might as well push my teammate, if it is a teammate in front of me, so our team or our car brand can win the race. Now, if a guy in front of me, he doesn't have a bow tie on his hood. He's got one of those doggone old Fords or one of them Toyotas. I'm not going to push him. I'm going to let my guy that's over in this line or my guy that's over in this line win the race. I don't know, that kind of, I don't know. I don't really like that as well. But I guess what I'm saying, what to look for in the pit strategy is the element of sometimes a certain brand or a certain team of branded cars will have the strategy of, like, okay, we're going to let the other crowds go ahead and pit, and we're going to sit out here and run a while under green. And doing that, we're going to run much faster lap times than what we were. I mean, this has happened a few times, and that ends up being a huge amount of track position when they say they wait 7 or 8, maybe 10 laps, and then all pit later. They made up so much ground on the racetrack by running much quicker lap times with only, say, 6 or 7 of them together, and they really draft the way they should and pushing each other along just to make up track position, and it works. So that to me is interesting. As a crew chief, it's like, this is a little bit of a gamble, but it's paid off. So those type things now, you know, it actually, Heather, I think a lot of the younger fans and the fans that like to think about the mental part of it and not just the raw driving, those type things, I think those fans enjoy that. They look forward to it. They like to put themselves in the position of the guy that's making that decision. It's like, I thought of that. I could be doing his job. So they probably could. So anyway, we'll see. It's going to be Talladega. There's going to be a couple big wrecks. There's going to be some equipment torn up. There's going to be some unhappy people. And remember, it is, at the end of the day, the guy who is maybe a little bit of an underdog, the David Gillilands in the past, and the David Reagans, and so on and so forth.
Todd Gilliland now.
Todd Gilliland now. Those guys are very, very apt to come off with, you know, a trophy in the biggest day of their racing career. And a lot of guys have done that in the past, so you never know. And I think the fans love that. I know the competitors do. I do. I see a guy like that. We won a race at Talladega 7 years ago with Parker and a small team, and everybody like, oh my gosh, it's the greatest thing ever. It's a big deal.
It's always the greatest thing ever when you guys are in victory lane.
Yeah. It'll happen.
Joining us now is Zane Smith, driver for Front Row Motorsports. First of all, Zane, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So obviously we just coming off the off week. How good was it for you and your team to maybe do some regrouping, look at how the first part of the season's gone, since you're adjusting to a new team and kind of, you know, getting things rolling here in the season?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's our first part of the season there, like 8 races or so in. I felt pretty strong about it. You know, I thought we were going to have to use those races to kind of build some momentum, and I don't know. I didn't think we would kind of be able to hit the ground running just because it was a new group working together. Typically, it's kind of hard to do that, but man, the transition has been really smooth, and I feel everything has gone pretty well. So happy with how our season has kind of started. There's a few things to clean up, and I feel we'll be a top 10 team every weekend. And so right now I feel we run 15th to 18th a lot of the day. And then there's one point throughout the race where we'll drop like into the lower 20s and then have to like battle back to like finish 11th, 12th. And so just trying to manage the day a little bit better. A few things, like I said, to clean up, and I feel we'll be there.
How much has your transition been helped by the fact that you're more familiar with Speedway, right? You've been in the car, maybe not in the customer, but you have some familiarity with the organization. Does that help with the transition?
It really has, yeah. I mean, I would say, going to a new team,
All three of us are.
you kind of look at it as, man, I need
We're
to
all
meet all
three
these
very
people.
I don't care,
Sorry.
dude.
That's okay.
I'm starting to
I need to meet all these new people and whatnot, but it's been far from that. I've met, I mean, some new people from I feel the SHR side, but it's a lot of familiar faces. I was just on the truck side, and then at the time kind of ran part-time cup. So yeah, it's been great. Really cool to be back. So excited for the rest of the year. I know it's gonna be a grind to figure out, but I'm ready for it.
Are there races that you target here in the next little group of races that might be a chance for you guys to have a good run, maybe a win? I'm guessing maybe this week at Talladega might be one of them.
Yeah, I mean, Talladega, we know the Fords are going to be fast. FRM always brings some incredible speed to the super speedways, which always makes it pretty exciting. But from my side, I don't feel like I'm the best super speedway racer, and I have a lot to learn in that area. But um, with that said, like going back to the speed that I know we're gonna have makes it more exciting. Knowing it's gonna make my job a little bit easier, but there's a lot out of your control there, so you never know what type of result you're gonna get. You could have a really fast car, be up front all day, and then get wrecked and not have a result to show for it. So from a speed standpoint, I know I'm gonna circle that one, but I'm excited to get some of the mile and a halves. I feel like from really going into the Homestead race, we learned a direction that I felt really great about. So it made me really excited for a lot of the mile and a halves coming up, and excited to see what they have to bring.
I find it interesting. You say you're not the best super speedway racer. Didn't you win? You won the Daytona truck race there a couple of times, right?
Yeah. I mean, I've had success there. I've been able to win at Talladega and like an ARCA car and stuff, and I've had some good or decent Daytona 500 finishes, but I still feel there's guys that are just better than me on super speedways, and I feel like a lot of it comes from experience and put in different situations and whatnot. And so, just I have a lot to learn on super speedways, as I'm sure everyone. You never stop learning, but I feel for me that I feel like after every super speedway race, I'm like, man, I learned a lot today. Versus a mile and a half, I feel pretty educated on a lot of the things. So, but that goes back to, yeah, I mean, you're learning every weekend, but there's just so many different moving parts on a super speedway.
Is there someone specifically you look to maybe learn on the super speedway from? Is there a driver that you either talk to or maybe try to follow behind at those races?
Yeah, I would say uh, in the past, I would say kind of Michael McDowell. He's had a lot of success, always around. Um, though he was at FRM, and we in a way have kind of like switched or swapped seats. So I wouldn't say current day, not really that, but my teammate Todd has always kind of ran up front in those races. So watching a little bit what he does, and yeah, just I feel like just watching what people do. I feel like it's kind of hard to get a truthful answer and like how to ask for like help on what things. It's just so situational dependent, I feel like. And so just going through film and watching different situations, how they play out, if a guy gets shuffled back, how to get back up there, just type of things like that. So we did some of that this morning after our competition meeting, but yeah, I mean, I mostly rely on film.
Um, the next part of the season, the second part of the season to say is a grind. It's like 27 straight weeks. We're on from now till the end of November. How do you approach that? I mean, you obviously can't look at it at here we go till November, because it would probably, make you pass out all the work that's ahead. But so how do you kind of approach the season? Do you set it up in sections? How do you look at it?
Yeah, it's kind of just week by week. I feel like, and I feel like that's how you execute the best of your ability. Is I don't even know. I think we go to Texas after Talladega, but um, I'm Kansas or Texas. I know that, but I'm so focused on just 1 week at a time and applying myself to that race. And so every weekend is different. That's what makes our sport so special. Never a home game. You're always traveling somewhere else. Every track has its own character, and so just going through past notes and like I said, rewatching races, going through what I came to learn, and then on Monday, we're focused on the next one.
For my final thought, I kind of want to rewind and backtrack a little bit to the All-Star race conversation. And not so much about this goofy, well, it is about this goofy promoter's caution, but it's actually more about how this ties into the bigger overlying issue. The number one issue in NASCAR right now is what to do to fix the racing in this next gen car. And I talked about this last week or 2 weeks ago, because I didn't do a final thought last week, but 2 weeks ago, it's really difficult to try to figure this out because the racing is so good on the intermediate tracks, and that is the majority of what we do in NASCAR is the intermediate tracks. And for a long time, they were not good in the Gen 6 car. It's really good in this car. So it's hard to walk away from that when that's what we're doing most weekends, even though it doesn't seem like it to start the season, because we've had a lot of our kind of different type events early in the season. It's hard to walk away, though, from how good the racing is now at Kansas and at Charlotte and at Nashville. Like, it's hard to just say, we're not going to do that. But you have to fix the short tracks. That is the breadth of this sport and the bread and butter. And I think adding this promoter's caution into the All-Star race is an admission by NASCAR that the product at North Wilkesboro is not good. The product at Bristol was not good. The product at Martinsville was decent, but they're tricking with the tires a little bit there. Same at Phoenix, same at Richmond. Somehow we have to find a solution to this car, or it's going to start to affect the very breadth of what this sport was built on, which is the short tracks. You might start to lose short tracks, because we started to lose intermediate tracks, right? We don't race at Chicagoland anymore. We only race once at Texas. We don't race at Kentucky anymore. I can't imagine what I've seen on social media over the last 2 weeks, and the off week being after Bristol was actually the worst thing that could happen for this. But people actually saying maybe we should only go to Bristol once. Maybe we should only go to Martinsville once. That's insanity for anyone that's been around the sport for any period of time. Those tracks have always been the holy grail of this sport. Maybe the races aren't necessarily crown jewels, although the Bristol night race has very much creeped into the conversation of crown jewel type events. And some do consider the crown jewel better than Indy, because in the last generation of cars, the racing in Indy wasn't that good. But to now start suggesting that these tracks, these bread and butter, salt of the earth tracks for NASCAR should only get one race, tells you that we've got a serious problem with this generation of race car and with this track and how they work together. And you can throw all the promotion cautions you want, promoters cautions in the world you want. It is not going to fix the problem. And there's obviously a problem that needs to be fixed. I think that admission and some of the other rumors that have leaked out about things that have gone on show that even NASCAR knows that there's a problem. The hardest part is, and I don't know anything about mechanics. My dad, I wish he was here sometimes, because he worked for Ford and he knows everything about how a car worked. No amount of my backseat quarterback is going to fix it, but it does need to be fixed. Thanks for joining us on the Backstretch. We'll see you next week.